Hello, David McKinley here from Central Schwenkfelder Church. This week we're going to be looking at the subject of love. Jesus spoke of love in Matthew chapter 22 when he addressed what the greatest commandment was. Matthew 22, verse 34. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? And he said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. That's an interesting statement because it tells us that the two things that we ought to always keep in mind in obedience to God is loving Him and loving our neighbor. Reminds me what Paul said in that great chapter of 1 Corinthians 13, oftentimes called the love chapter. He said, Now abide faith, hope, and love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. Love can be defined as self-giving, self-sacrificing compassion toward others. Of course, there's all kinds of love, but the greatest love is the love that Jesus showed when he died upon the cross. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. As we think about faith, hope, and love, it's interesting to point out that St. Augustine, who was a 4th century church father, he taught that faith is represented in the Apostles' Creed, what we are to believe about God, that hope is represented in the Lord's Prayer as we communicate with God and we place our hope in Him, and knowing that He is the giver of everything that's good. And then love is based in the 10 Commandments. And if you were to break down the 10 Commandments, you would see that the first 4 have to do with our love for God. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a graven image to worship it. You are to not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. In other words, use it in a careless way. And then the 4th commandment, you shall remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Those 4 commandments certainly form the basis of our understanding of how we should love God. Worship is at the center of the first 4 commandments. And then the last 6 have to do with love for neighbor. You shall honor your father and mother, which of course includes all those in authority, from law enforcement to teachers to other people, your boss, those that are over you in authority, those who serve for your greater good. And then, of course, you shall not commit murder, that Christians are to be people who preserve life and count it as precious. You shall not commit adultery, that God wants us to be sexually pure and holy, and to regard the marriage covenant as something of great importance that demands loyalty. And then you shall not steal, preserving the property of others and making sure that your neighbor advances in prosperity as well as yourself. And then you shall not bear false witness, that you ought to tell the truth. And then lastly, you shall not covet. That means an unhealthy desire for things, to such that you are willing to hurt a person in order to achieve it. And so by the 10 Commandments, we see a fulfillment in the 2 greatest commandments that Jesus spoke of, to love God and to love neighbor. We're going to be talking about love, and we hope that you will come and join us this Sunday. Of course, our traditional service is at 9 a.m. in our sanctuary, and our contemporary service is in our fellowship hall at 10:45. And I hope to see you. May the Lord bless you and keep you.